something that I like to illustrate with people is something that I call the freedom plan. And it's
Mm.
really about separating your life into four quadrants. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The first quadrant, the easiest thing to delegate in your life is the repetitive things.
Oh, yes.
So, for example, I always recommend, and I may be biased because I own a virtual assistant company, but I always recommend that the first hire you have should be an executive assistant.
Welcome to the Buzzworthy Marketing Show.
Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Woo! Let's do it.
Ah!
Oh man, it's been wild, just thinking about like how much advancement we've made since our last talk about AI and remote teams, and it's a crazy time for productivity, man.
It is amazing. It's a funny thing. Since the last time we talked, we have also really looked at AI almost as another employee, right?
Yep.
And because we talk about, today I definitely want to talk about automation and delegation, really delegation, right?
Yeah.
But like when we talk about AI, and you're an AI master, and the things that I never, just in the last 12 months, never thought AI would do is already getting there. But it's funny. Tell me if this resonates with you and the people you're talking to. Remember the guys who were like sitting there going, "Oh, AI is going to take over everything. You're all going to be out of a job." Remember those guys, right? Then it was, well, AI is not going to be able to do anything that we can do, and humans will always do it better. Remember those guys,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now I feel like you have a bunch of people who have realized how good it could be, but they have no idea what they're doing. As far as not necessarily the AI is easy to use, but if you don't understand the fundamentals of what you're trying to do, AI is always going to suck. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And the thing about it, the way to look at it too is, yeah, it's kind of goes back to the old original cliche statement, which is a man is only as good as his tools.
Ooh.
Uh, right?
Right.
And resources, people, AI. It's just you all have to just think of it as another tool in the toolbox. And whoever does have the best toolbox wins. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you can have all the tools in the world if you don't know how to use them, they're still useless.
exactly. I think it's skills. I think a person with all the skills and none of the tools can still outperform the person with all the tools and no skill.
Well, especially like you said with AI, I mean, a lot of these tools are free.
Yeah.
So I think it's really leveled the playing field for people, and not, just all around the world as well.
Hmm.
Funny story, you know who the highest adoption rate of AI is?
No, no.
Students.
Students. I should have known that. Yes.
Lazy students who
Oh,
don't want
lazy
to do their
students.
homework.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yes, and they're going. I mean, there's technology to counter that. So it's so fun to be living in America, because like in other countries, some of this stuff has been locked down. Like there's technology that we get for free that's illegal, put you in jail, illegal to even look at in other countries, right?
Right.
And so like I count my blessings. I just came back from Ireland, and even in Ireland, there's things like you can't even talk about certain things when you're in certain parts of the country, even though they're a free country. They have these things, and so I don't want to digress too farther, but I just want to say, God bless America, for the love of Pete.
Yeah.
It is awesome to be back. I love visiting other places because it reminds me how good we have it here. So, with that said, though, in the toolbox, when we talk about toolboxes, tools are just the shortcut, right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, when we talk about leveraging, I want to then pull that into delegation, because
Mm.
delegating is another form of leveraging, right?
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I think one of the reasons why I've become so successful in the AI field is just because I've been running remote teams for a long time, and delegating to a remote team is very similar to to delegating to AI. So,
Mm,
if you understand the fundamentals of delegation, no matter what the tool, you're going to be able to
Mm.
get good results. And here's the key: you're going to get repeatable results.
The consistency of AI once you have it dialed in, and I think it's hilarious that so many
And the consistency of humans when you get it dialed in.
yeah, I mean, yeah,
Like
it's true.
that. It's not really, once in a while you'll get somebody who, and there's obviously advantages of humans and there's advantages of AI. For
Mhm.
example, AI is never going to quit,
Mm.
right? It's
Never gonna
never going
ask
to
for
complain,
vacation, not gonna call in sick.
never going to ask for a raise. It's
Well,
never going to,
yeah, your service provider is probably gonna ask for a raise every once in a while, but it's
yeah,
minuscule.
yeah, compared to a human.
Yeah.
But for me, I think one of the things that we're looking at right now is IP. And
Mm.
when you're dealing with intellectual property and you have team members that are learning from you and growing, and then
Mm.
after a year and a half or 2 years, by the way, the average tenure for a technology company is 1.8 years. So
Jeez.
you don't even spend 2 years, not even 2 years in, and usually they're out. They're gone to another
Mm.
job, and
Mhm.
everything you've taught them is gone compared to AI, which is going to stick with you forever, and you never have to worry about it stealing. Well, I mean, you do have to worry about it stealing, but you're fighting against a different type of
Yes.
theft, right?
Yeah, well, a
So
controllable threat.
right, and when it comes to delegation, though, there's a couple things you have to think about, and it's almost like a readiness thing.
Mm.
And something that I like to illustrate with people is something that I call the freedom plan. And it's
Mm.
really about separating your life into four quadrants. Okay.
Mhm.
The first quadrant, the easiest thing to delegate in your life is the repetitive things.
Oh, yes.
So, for example, I always recommend, and I may be biased because I own a virtual assistant company, but I always recommend that the first hire you have should be an executive assistant,
100%.
somebody who knows your day-to-day routine,
Mhm.
who logs into your emails.
Mhm.
They are the gatekeeper for your calendar.
Mhm.
They can manage your social media inboxes.
Mhm.
They own your to-do list. You should have a daily
Mm.
to-do list, and just those things alone. And they also come on my calls. They take meeting minutes. They follow up with action items.
Mm.
So just that one piece alone
Mm.
will guarantee so much more success compared to an entrepreneur who literally is reliable to one person themselves. They're only accountable to themselves.
Right.
And which, by the way, is a massive problem for entrepreneurs because we typically don't like to be held accountable to ourselves,
Yes, a
right?
lot of us do not know. I
If,
found that
if you
those who are good at it are probably the better of the entrepreneurs out there, though.
if you ask an entrepreneur why they started the business, the number one thing, and I've pulled this over and over and over, the number one thing that they always say, the reason why they started their own business was because they wanted freedom.
Freedom. Freedom. Yeah, and
So,
it's funny because it's, the one that I always hear is that they wanted to be their own boss,
which is freedom.
which is another form of freedom. But the problem with that is that it's like, yeah, you got rid of one boss, and now you have how many clients? Whatever amount
Uh-huh.
of clients you have, multiply that. That is the number of bosses you now have.
Right.
You know, like people talk about, well, I only got fired by one job. As an entrepreneur, we get fired. Some of us get fired every day. Right? Clients come and go. Like you just don't know. I mean, depending on your industry, yeah, some people get fired every single day.
Yeah. And I think, there's a level of accountability that we don't I feel like most entrepreneurs don't hold themselves to.
Mm, mhm,
Um, and having that person who, like, for example, my assistant, her name's Jackie. You've
mhm,
met her,
mhm,
and
mhm.
virtually you've met her,
Yeah.
and like even this call, right? She scheduled it,
Right.
right? So
Right.
she's the ultimate gatekeeper. She knows what I want on my calendar. She knows the people I don't want on my calendar.
Right.
She's very protective of my time.
Mm,
And one of the things that's beautiful is that, like, when you're thinking about delegation, those repetitive tasks that we start talking about, those are the things that you want to really start getting off your plate right away.
mhm.
Because what happens to an entrepreneur when they free up their time, when they take less off the plate. What does an entrepreneur? They're like, oh, I have more time now. I can do this, and they fill it with other things.
They
Right.
do. We do. We do.
And this is this reliability piece. This is why it's so important to have a reliable assistant, right? An executive assistant is someone who's like with you. They're committed. They're not juggling multiple clients. Do not hire a freelancer.
No.
Hire a dedicated assistant
Mm-hmm.
who wakes up and you are their job. Not I have 5 clients, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want a juggler. You want someone who wakes up and says, "How can I make their job is to make my life easier."
Exactly.
Right? Your assistant's job should be to make your life easier and to make you look good, really.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think
so,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Okay.
I know you had a good thought there.
I everything you said, I'm like 100%. My executive assistant is Becky. And, when I first started when I first realized that I could use an executive assistant or just an admin assistant, right? Like when I had a brick and mortar, I had an office manager who was technically my EA, except I never thought back then, I never thought of like having them monitor my emails. Like I just didn't make, like nobody tells you this thing. Like I wish there was like an owner's manual. like you're going to start a business and your first hire is going to be this. This is the softwares you're going to stay away from. All the things that we all have to go through, right? But I think the biggest thing is that you don't have to hire a full-time one, right?
No.
Sometimes, you said like don't get the ones that are like a freelancer and stuff like that, but isn't there like a space for somebody who does say, hey, listen, I only need you for 5 to 10 hours a week max, like not, so now you have to like look for somebody
it
who has that
depends.
situation.
So
right?
First off, if nobody wakes up and says, I want a part-time job.
Right. Well, yeah.
Whenever somebody says that they're looking for a part-time job, what that means is that, hey, look, you're not my main priority, but I want to make some extra money. Okay.
Or they might have extreme circumstances. They're stay-at-home parent, or they have so my EA's got fibromyalgia. She can only work 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
And she hadn't been in the work. So I got extremely lucky with mine. Like that. So I want everybody that's listening to this to know that I am extraordinarily lucky. This is not normal. But when we started, we did start with 10 hours because we needed to test how much her bandwidth was. She hadn't worked for 15 years.
It also depends on what their job is, right? So like if this person's like helping, make some proposals here and there, and they don't need to be on all your calls throughout the day,
right?
Then, or maybe they're just helping you create social media content or whatever.
There's that.
Like if it's not something that really requires them to be on for a set amount of time, that's great. But what I'm saying is if you want to have a level of accountability and you want to make massive movement, if you want to start pushing the needle faster than you've ever seen before, you will get a person who works with you every day, all day. I will tell you right now that this is one of the big, let me just break it down to you. Let me do some math here. I think let me give you 6 things that I can think of right now that gives me an advantage over 99% of all the entrepreneurs that I personally know.
Love it.
Okay.
Bring it on.
All right. That don't have an assistant. Okay. Right. So for those of you who have an assistant, this doesn't apply to you, but maybe even if you have an assistant, this could help you in how to
take full advantage of what you have. Yeah, for sure. Here we go.
Okay. So number 1, my assistant, she starts her work shift 1 hour before I even wake up. Okay. So before I wake up, she's already gone through my emails, my notifications. She's basically responding to things that she can, that she knows about. She's flagging things that maybe are important, that require my attention, or that she doesn't know how to respond to. So that when I wake up, and the first thing we do when we wake up is what? We grab our phones, right? Our alarms are on our phones usually. The phone goes off, we're like, I hit the snooze button, and then you grab the phone and you're like, okay. And then the first thing you do is you scroll down and look at that notification bar and you see, oh my gosh, I have like so many notifications, right?
Right.
So what she does is she eliminates notification hell, right? So what she's doing is I wake up to a very small amount of things that require my attention and she's done the rest.
Nice.
Okay. Number 2, before I even wake up, she reviews my calendar and she gives me a layout of what I actually need to do for the day, right? And
Nice.
she, and she takes my to-do list that we've
Mhm.
been working on. It's basically a growing and shrinking list throughout the day.
Right.
We have an ongoing to-do list that gets updated on a daily basis. So here's my calls for the day. Here's my to-do list for the day.
Mm.
Okay. We have a call every morning at 9 a.m. Just a 15-minute call just to go through what needs to be done for that day. What are the
Mm.
priorities? And then she'll run through usually my to-do list and my calendar to make sure what I want to do. Okay. Like for example, yesterday, she's like, hey, your tax people said that they need this report done. You need this done. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do that today. Let's do it for tomorrow. Right. So she, her and I are proactively setting things up so that
Mhm.
I'm successful. Okay.
Mm.
Number
Mhm.
three, she attends all of my calls.
Mm.
She's on all my calls. Matter of fact, sometimes she'll show up to a podcast. I'm like, hey, it's just a podcast. You can leave. She's like, okay. Right.
Right.
She's taking attendance of the call. She's writing my meeting minutes.
Nice.
She's going through actionable discussion notes.
Mm.
She's doing action items. She's actually using AI to do a lot of this now.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
but the AI still doesn't know me the way that she does. She knows
Right.
what is actually important from a call. The AI is trying to guess,
Right.
right?
Right, 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 right.
So and then of course the action items, the follow-ups, all the different things. She'll even like 15 minutes before a call, hey, just a reminder, you got a call coming up, whatever, right?
Mm.
So she's doing a lot of the stuff to again to number one to increase the value of my time by protecting it. Number
Mm.
two, she's already showing that my time is valuable. When you tell somebody, hey, talk to my assistant,
Mhm.
and she'll schedule it instantly, the
Mm.
perceived value of your time is higher.
Mm. Mhm.
So people
Mhm.
don't mess around so much,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like I'll get people all the time. They'll be like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to your assistant, or whatever." I'm like, "Well, then you don't want to be on my calendar."
Right. Exactly.
That's it.
I mean,
All right. So
I wonder if I should start do I'm so easy to be like, because we have our calendar set. I have certain calendars set for certain types of meetings and certain type of people. So, on the spot, I can give them a specific link of like how far in advance I want them to be out,
yeah,
like how long they get, the whole 9 yards.
yeah, and your assistant can
Yeah.
totally run that for you. Like,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
like
she
I
does.
don't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
use Calendly. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
even use a calendar link or anything. Like she manually sets that up.
Oh, nice.
But
Yeah.
I just because that's the way that I like it that way.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it could probably save her time to do it that way. But the other thing is too is that she knows what time of the day that I want to do things. And when you go on Calendly and you're like, well, I don't want to have calls from this time to this time, whatever, like things pop up, like the kids' basketball game yesterday. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that was not, I wanted to leave early at 4 o'clock so I can get there in time because my office is 25 minutes away from the game. So
Right.
there's little things like that that pop up,
Sure.
right?
Right.
And so number four is that throughout the day, she's checking my emails,
Mhm.
she's looking at what's going on, addresses any issues that are happening that I need to
Mm.
know about. Well,
Mhm.
usually when I'm on calls or when I'm
Mhm.
doing a podcast, like right now, here I am recording the show with you.
Mhm.
For sure, she's doing all my emails. She's catching up on inboxes. Like
Mhm.
this is when I'm working and she's not on a call is when she actually gets the time to catch up. Okay,
I love it. I love it.
right.
I love it. No.
So back to what you were saying though earlier, and this is number five. I get on typical day probably 5 to 10 meeting requests from people that are like, "Hey, I want to either have you on the show, or I want to ask you a question, or an AI consult call, or whatever it is."
Mhm.
Throughout the day, usually on Facebook and Instagram or LinkedIn's been pretty popping for me lately.
Mhm.
But these people will come to me and say, "Hey, I want to pick your brain about some stuff, whatever." And she's actually screening those calls.
Mm.
She's figuring out if I want to do those calls, right?
Mm.
And a lot of times she'll hand them off to team members. So for example, we
Mm.
have a leader who does all of our client onboarding. So if there's a
Mm.
client issue, like she'll say, "Oh, no problem. Let me introduce you to whoever." If
Mhm.
another client's like, "Hey, you know what? I want to use I'm thinking about using one of your VAs to do some graphic design or build a website. Oh, no problem. Pop on a call with Julio, and
Mhm.
Julio will do the inbound sales call.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
she's sorting things, figuring out where they should be, and
Mhm.
on a very rare occasion, she'll let someone on my calendar. Right.
Nice, nice.
So, but here's the last thing, okay? And by the way, this is just a few of the things that I can think
Mm.
of on a day-to-day basis she's doing.
Mhm.
But here's the final thing. And this is where I believe a lot of people are missing out. And this is a massive productivity hack if you follow my instructions I'm going to give you, which is before the end of every shift, okay, before the end of the day, she checks in on me, and we usually do a wrap up of the to-do list again and say, okay, what did you actually get done for the to-do list? Is there anything that needs to be added on? And we reprioritize the to-do list for tomorrow,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So that when we log in the next day, we already are running straight hard on the ground, ready to get stuff done. And I'm
Mm.
telling you, if you follow what I just did, if you just follow, if and by the way, my EA does way more than that. She's doing
Mm.
presentation slides for me.
Mm.
She's doing
I've seen them.
she's yeah, yeah. She's using my AI to write email newsletters. She's
Mm.
doing all sorts of different things. So those are all bonuses, right?
Mm.
Because if all she did was organize my calendar,
Mhm.
make me look good, follow up on
Mhm.
my clients, send links, she's literally using AI to create proposals now and contracts. Like, if all she did was those 6 things that I did, I'm already going to be way more productive than 99% of entrepreneurs who wake up flailing their arms trying to figure out what they're going to do for the day. If you've been listening to this and you're like nodding your head like, yes, I need an executive assistant like that, I would love to help you out. We're going to put a link here in this. And I really do. You should just schedule a strategy call with my team, completely free, and just learn and see if it's actually something that you're ready for right now. I would love to be able to help you if I can.